Definitely not the Rams with the Rams. I went to the Rams game.
There's no
You don't need one. Wow.
So just so you know, when you see
Nope.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. It's a good crowd. We're going to have a very informative presentation here this evening. My name is Harry Otto. I'm serving as the chair of the Heartland Port for 2022. I'd like to introduce the other Heartland Port Commission members. I'll speak up because one of the members back there at Calawegian is saying he can't hear me. Roger Fisher from Callaway. We've got Jason, where Jason sit down. Jason represents part of Cole County. We've got John Hensley, City Councilman is going to be here later. Rick Mihalich, where'd you go, Rick? City, Jefferson. David Floyd, another Calawegian, where'd you go? Back there. And Jeff Knott, one of the Cole County. Jeff Earl, I don't see Jeff here, and I was hoping he'd be here. Because he's a Jeffco fellow. Grew up in Lower Arnold, I think.
Lower Arnold, L.A.
Yeah, L.A.
Lower Arnold. Where's that from?
That's it.
The river.
And Tom Woods from Callaway. As I said, thanks for coming. I want to have Roger, who has been on the board a number of years. Western District Commissioner of Callaway and was the chair last year and the vice chair this year. He's been deeper into this, has more experience, and he knows the gentleman and how to introduce him. So, Roger, you take it from here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Harry. I'm going to go off my notes here a little bit. It's a little too much for me to memorize. 5 years ago, I ran for commissioner for Callaway County. And at that point, one of the things that we were looking for was what can we do? What can I as a commissioner have influence on? And one of the things that I thought was I'd love to see if we could do something with the river port. I have a background in economic development. So then I fooled around and got elected. And that was a good thing for me. And I knew about 4 years ago, I'd heard of a meeting of some guys in St. Louis. They're coming to St. Louis. A group of executives were coming to talk about their plans to make direct shipments from central United States to international destinations. And I thought, wow, this could be good for our economic development opportunities. And at about that same time, we had reached out to Jefferson City, our neighbors to the south, to discuss what kinds of opportunities the port could bring, and we had a lot of interest. And Sam Bushman was right there at some of the early meetings we had there in Jeff City, and we met with guys from Cole County and Callaway County, and we jointly applied for a port authority. And today we have a regional port authority that encompasses all of Jefferson City, all of Cole County, and all of Callaway County. Since then, the Panama Canal has been upgraded, and it now allows the largest cargo carriers the ability to move cargo through the canal. Now these are the really big ones. Before it was pretty restricted because the Panama Canal just wasn't ever built to handle those huge ships. So now they can easily reach the Gulf of Mexico and destinations along all along our southern coast. So 4 years later, a lot of water under the bridge, pun intended. I'm honored to introduce our speaker tonight, Sal Latrico. Sal is CEO for American Patriot Container Transport, and he leads American Patriot Holdings executive management team. Sal graduated from State University of New York Maritime College in 1977. He has his degree in marine transportation. He was an ensign in the U.S. Navy. He's licensed as a third mate, or at that time he was licensed as a third mate, Ocean's Unlimited Tonnage, and he has a master's license for 1,600 GRT vessels, which are the really big guys. In 2004, He became president and COO and later the CEO of Tico Transport, which was later sold to United Maritime Group, with whom he worked with management responsibilities over 3 distinct operating fleets. It's a big job. In 2010, Sal retired from United Maritime Group and formed Charlie Echo Group in Tampa, Florida, and there he spent much of his time as an expert and consultant for business development, leadership training, risk management, and litigation support. Come 2014, Sal agreed to head up American Patriot Container Transport as a lead person on the project to rebuild Plaquemines Port on the Mississippi River south of New Orleans. And it's located on some of the deepest water. It's the only deep water Gulf port on the Mississippi River. Among other things, he was the governor of Florida appointed him as the chairman of Tampa Bay Harbor Safety and Security Commission. He's been on the Federal Towing Safety Advisory Committee. He's a member of American Waterways Operators, among several other boards related to cargo and waterways in North America. Please join me in welcoming Sal Latrico, CEO of American Patriot Container Transport. Supposed to be one in the handle. Push that top button, yeah.
Good night, everybody.
We should have had Missy give us instructions, training on this.
We'll have a short intermission.
Good evening. I think I'm gonna take an informal approach. What'd you do? How'd you get all that information about me? Let me tell you the real story, how I met him. 4 years ago, he's correct, he went to a meeting. There was about a smaller room than this, but there was probably more people. And we talked about the project. And we're gonna kick it off. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. He comes over, shakes my hand and says, we're gonna do business together. I said, sounds great. What port are you with? He goes, not yet. We don't have a port yet, but we're gonna put one together. Here we are, aren't we? Okay, and we put the port together. Now we gotta take it to the next step. If we're gonna do containerized cargo, what do we need to do to make it happen? So we'll talk about our project and go from there, but tenacious is probably a pretty good word. The other is, on the personal note, if anybody's contemplating knee replacement surgery, call me first. Right? I had mine done 6 weeks ago, and it's killing me. So think twice before you do it. All right. Also with me today is our partner and developer for most of the Midwest terminals is Jim Hurley with Hawtex Development. He'll be talking a little bit here later. So this presentation that I'm going to use is the one that we used for Governor Parson in December 16th, and then we update a little bit to be a little bit more Jefferson City or Heartland Port Authority focus. So at least we've got a consistent message. You can see what we talked to the governor about, what our mission is, and what we're trying to accomplish. So what are we bringing to the table? We're bringing a new transportation alternative. Cargo today basically moves containerized cargo, West Coast, East Coast, until they expanded the Panama Canal. And when they expanded the Panama Canal, it created opportunities, as Roger said. But understand the opportunity. Up until the expansion of the canal, container ships are measured by how many 20-foot equivalent TEUs. They call them TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units. How many 20-foot containers they can carry. Before the expansion, it was up to 5,000 TEU ships. Now with the expansion, it's up to 18, depending on design. So 15 to 18,000 TEU ships. Significant economies of scale. Big vessels can now come into the Gulf. Where are they gonna go? Where are they gonna go? 50-foot draft, 1,300 feet long, 250 feet wide. Where are they gonna go? They can't. So we needed to create a new system to accommodate this. So we're gonna talk about the new alternative. There's 3 major components: a regional gateway terminal down in Lower Mississippi, 50 miles south of New Orleans, called Plaquemines Parish. We're going to talk about our patented design container on vessel and our strategic Midwest strategic container terminals, and the reason they're strategic locations and what the role is that they're going to play. Collectively, we're going to bring competitive cost advantages. So I'll talk a little bit about how it benefits our nation, the 3 components, what phase we're in, the milestones that we've accomplished, and then really before this night's over, what do we need to do together? What's the next steps? So, right now, state-of-the-art battleground. Before the pandemic, post-Panama Canal. So keep in mind, right now, with the pandemic and all of this supply chain stuff, cost of containers and logistics and supply chains are out of this world. You're seeing ships waiting for 120 days. Container boxes that used to cost $4,000 are costing $16,000 now. It's very, very expensive. But before that, everybody realized the expansion of the canal, there's more cargo that can come out containerized that's just sitting in the Midwest. So the ports out in the West Coast and East Coast started, hey, how do we expand? How do we accommodate this new cargo that potentially we can put on containerized cargo? When you look at the forecast for the next 10 to 20 years, containerized cargo is going to double. Significant growth, especially for the agricultural side of this. So the problem in the West Coast is they really can't go after that cargo because it's being demonstrated right now. They can't handle what they have today. You have this new growth coming. They don't have the automation. They have automation, but not the automation they really need to handle these big vessels. If before the vessels were 5,000 to 8,000 TEU ships, and now you're bringing 15,000 to 20,000 TEU ships in there, instead of taking 1 day to offload, it takes 3. But what happens to all the ships behind that? So this compounded effect is what you're seeing right now. The unions are fighting automation. They don't have California, the environmental footprint. They want CNG trucks. There's not enough CNG trucks. So the chassis just sit. You've been reading about it. They just sit at the dock. Well, that's part of the reason why. And then they don't have the blueprint to expand. East Coast is running to similar issues, but on the Gulf Coast, it's operational constraints. Bridges, New Orleans can only take up to 8,000 TEU ship. We're talking 15,000 to 20,000 TEU ships. Houston can't take but up to 10,000 at the right conditions. So how do you create a new opportunity to create flexibility and options in the supply chain? So how does this benefit the nation? Well, the Gulf and the Midwest are going to gain a new intermodal regional gateway terminal that's not dependent on rail, which can be expensive and unreliable, okay? Reduces dependency on the West Coast, creates another option. It's got a green footprint. All of our new system has a green footprint, either CNG or LNG throughout the whole system. And it can handle the largest vessels, so no operating constraints. And that's very important. So if you're gonna put a new system in, make sure you don't have any bottlenecks when you're building this. And then our marine inland transportation becomes a better option versus rail and trucking because we're factored into it reliability, speed, critical mass is what we're calling cargo volume, lower freight rates, safety, environmental, and our cargo flexibility. We can carry refrigerated cargo. A lot of diversity, liquid cargo, bulk cargo, you name it. So our first leg is LAG, Louisiana Gulf Gateway Terminal. At full bill out, I got fat fingers, the laser is too close. There we go. So up here, you can see at full build out, there's 20,000 TEU ships or bigger come in at one time. And then over here, you can do 2 of our vessels at one time, 7, you can do 7 unit trains at one time, and it's total warehouse distribution logistics system park that also has refrigerated cargo. It's a total package. This is the kind of footprint you need to attract new cargo, grow cargo, and other cargo that wants to find a lower landed cost. So that's our terminal at the lower Mississippi River. It's 50 miles further south than New Orleans. So the ships only have to go half the distance to the river. So they're saving money. Our second leg is our strategic sister partners, our Midwest ports. Common DNA, all green, common footprint, not in competition with each other. We're here to serve our customers. How do we help our customers? If one port has an issue, we lean on the other port to help them out. So as much as we work together, we're working as a team, as a unit. Again, green footprint, And then our first phase, our Louisiana Gulf Gateway, is down here at mile 50. Our first phase 1 is Memphis. And Jim is our developer from Memphis. He's gonna get up here in a second and talk about what he's putting together in Memphis. We also have the cargo. Jim has facilitated putting the cargo together. We have an LOI signed that basically says we have enough cargo commitments to build 4 vessels. Our first 4 vessels will run from Memphis to Lag. Round trip is 6.5 days. Just about 2.1 days out, day of cargo, day air cargo up in Memphis, and a little less than 2 days coming back. So, pretty efficient, pretty quick. And then our phase 2 operation will be any of these other ports, and we'll talk about that in the presentation. Where's the cargo? Where's the bankable cargo? Do we have the right property in place? Do we have a developer? And do we have the financing to support it? So, the third leg is our vessel. A patented design, state-of-the-art container-armed vessel, not a container-armed barge. If you look down here, do you see this highlighter here? This is our, what we call, it's a patented bow design, it's a baffle. So basically, we optimize our speed. This vessel goes 13 miles an hour plus, but 13 miles an hour upriver. Okay, Mississippi River, you all know what the current is, pretty strong. So that's the net speed on that. The other piece here is this horizontal bar is our exoskeleton hull design. The way we design it, we're maximizing our cargo loads at a 9-foot draft. These vessels can operate at 7 feet to 10 feet. So, how is it being done today? How do containers move today? It's being completed with utilizing coal and grain barges. It works, small pieces, small trips, not a lot of volume, cherry pickers versus state-of-the-art cranes to optimize speed. That's great, but it's not gonna help a 15,000 TEU ship waiting down at Lag that needs a lot of containers on a dedicated service from a speed and critical mass standpoint. So, here's our vessel. We have 2 classes of vessels, the liner vessel and the hybrid. This is the liner. The liner will go to Cairo, Memphis, and St. Louis. It's too wide to go through the locks. All the locks in the United States, tributary rivers, are 600 by 110. The liner is 595 by 134. Our air draft is lower than a conventional triple screw towboat. We do 13 miles an hour. We can carry close to 2,400 TEU, again basis weight, and we can do refrigerated cargo, and this is LNG. This runs under LNG. Our hybrid vessel has all the efficiencies of the liner, just a little bit smaller, lower profile for the bridge clearances. We took into consideration, we looked at 50 years historical highs and lows, and when we designed this, we made sure that we'd have the most minimum impact from high or low water. Plus, these things are 15,000 horsepower. They've got thrusters, I mean, dynamic positioning, everything. These things are as state-of-the-art as you can get. The impact on this is 595 by 106. It's a 40, it's actually 42, not, 42 foot draft at 9, air draft at 9 foot, 13 miles an hour, 1,864 TEU basis weight. It can do refrigerated cargo and again, LNG. So these are as state-of-the-art as you could possibly get. Memphis. Memphis is gonna be our first phase 1 operational date of 2nd quarter of 2024. Again, 4 vessels. Jim is designing our terminal. What you talk about?
I'm designing.
Oh,
I don't need that. I don't trust myself.
All right, I'll do it.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Where's the teleprompter? I started with Hotex. We started this process about 5 years ago, talking to folks in Little Rock. As those discussions moved along, we ended up walking away from Little Rock, went to Memphis, and after talking to the Port of Memphis for a couple of years, the parcel that they had determined was going to be the site for their master plan for a container terminal became unavailable. between some competing parties suing each other over the property and otherwise. So we went out and found a private port facility on the river, 3 miles north of downtown Memphis. I will just caution everybody, because you won't see a name on here as to the property itself, and that's because it has not been publicly announced yet. It's a privately owned company. They have 4 other terminals in the United States, one in Miami, one in New Jersey, and 2 further up the river. But basically what we've got here is a footprint where we can put 2 berths on the riverfront. We are also, and you'll see the name Vickerman down here, that's John Vickerman out of Williamsburg, Virginia, who has probably designed 75% of all the ports in the United States. I'm gonna be with him again at the end of the month with this project and 2 others that we'll mention here in a minute. But we're also looking at, if you'll see the blue Slackwater Harbor that's north of the green area here, the APH folks and I are considering we may actually move the 2 berths for the APH vessels up into the Slackwater Harbor. Couple of reasons for that. One, get them off of the current of the river itself while they're at berth. More importantly, the APH guys are talking about possibly bunkering LNG at Memphis and would prefer to do that in a Slackwater Harbor instead of out on the riverfront itself. The orange line you see going up to the north, that's basically all empty space, is just that. This is a opportunity to, we've got a clean footprint with over 250 acres that can be used for the container terminal itself. Equally important for distribution centers, light manufacturing facilities, and otherwise. There is almost 1 million square feet of warehouse space existing at this site. They currently, all they do is bulk in and out. They have not done containers here. This is gonna be a new operation for them, but we're excited about the opportunity. As Sal mentioned, I have a BCO out of Arkansas that's right now projecting, and we're getting close to hitting that deadline, but we're looking again at the late spring, early summer of 2024, that they'll be operating about 54,000 FEUs, so 110,000 TEUs annually exporting from this port over to Asia. We have several other BCOs in the region that we're talking to for imports. Obviously, one of the biggest things with putting a container terminal together when you're analyzing cargo, and we'll talk about that a little bit later here as it relates to Heartland, but you've got to have some kind of a balance of imports and exports. If all you're doing is exporting, then you've got a situation of trying to get empty containers in, or getting the BCOs wherever they may be. They may be 100 miles away, they may be 50 miles away, but if you've got an import volume of TEUs, you can balance that out. Obviously, from what's happening at Plaquemines, we have several major BCOs in the, let's call it the Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri region, that are very interested in importing products in through the river, up the river to either Memphis, St. Louis, actually all the way to Joliet, where the hybrid vessels will actually operate. Eventually, that's probably phase 2 or phase 3. But again, with the kind of BCOs that we're talking to now, we're getting a lot of traction for the import side, and that just makes it that much easier to be able to balance that export cargo. So that's what's happening there. We are probably 2 months away from our actual public announcement. A lot of you are aware that we actually had an announcement back in December with Herculaneum. Different set of circumstances, but I expect that here in the next couple of months, we will be making the public announcement for Memphis as well. From that standpoint, again, we're looking at April, May of 2024 to have this facility up and operating. It will, again, we'll have the 2 berths, and we'll handle whatever these guys can do to getting the boat up and down the river. This is a preliminary work design that was done, again, John Vickerman. Herculaneum, some of you were at our press conference back in December, but short answer to this is the old Doe Run lead smelter site. It's about 15 miles south of St. Louis. Same type of an operation. We've got a riverfront side. There's 18 acres that are currently owned by the Fred Weber Group, and they operate a bulk transfer facility at that port. Again, we're looking at taking and putting 2 berths in here. The beauty of all this, again, because of the remediation work that's being done by Doe Run, and it's been accelerated over the last year, they expect that to be finished here in the next 6 months or so. We have just in the last 3 to 4 weeks come to an agreement in principle. That's part of what I'm going to be doing next week. But they have agreed they want to bring their property, the Doe Run property, which is everything else you see here, even up in the tree lines. There's about 180 additional acres that they want to bring into the development for an industrial park and what we don't use for the container terminal itself. So again, you've got 2 private entities, both of them seeing the value of bringing this kind of a facility to this location. We are at the same point here talking about BCO's potential imports and exports. Obviously from this location, agricultural exports is going to be something that's going to have a lot of interest. Sal and I were in, where were we, Charleston, Virginia, back in December, and met with the Soy Transportation Coalition board. Had a lot of interest from, and again, probably telling people, a lot of people in here already know this, 85% of the soy exports from the U.S. go down the Mississippi River. So that's another thing that we're looking at from that standpoint. We expect the Herculaneum site to be operational by the fall of 2024. It would probably end up being anywhere from 4 to 6 months behind Memphis as far as being up and operational. But the agreements, we've got everybody on board that we need. We've got significant private financing lined up and things of that nature. So that's where we are with Herculaneum. Yeah, I want you to do this because I don't know anything about the port of Kansas City.
Thank
I'm
you.
not
Good
about to
job.
Profess that I do.
Great job, by the way.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Sal Trico.
All right, another one of our partner ports is Kansas City. They've been really working on this for quite a while. They've got over 400 acres. They've got KPMG they've hired. They're really moving down the line on this thing. And again, where they're at right now is land, developer, bankable cargo, and then alignment with the project, so can we have the vessels to do this. So right now, obviously coming up the Missouri River, is Jefferson City gonna be a stop, or is it gonna be its own stop? So those are the things we have to talk about, and then that partially gets dictated by what Kansas City does. They may just need 2 vessels by themselves, or we parcel them and basically go between both ports. Time to tell, we'll see. They got a $10 million grant. These guys they're happening. Kansas City's gonna be on, well, they're already on the map, but I mean, from a container standpoint, by inland waterway, they're gonna make it happen. And then we've got our Heartland Port Authority that I think has some decisions to make, but it's great because they are decisions, and make sure that basis where we are from a project perspective, where's the best location, how do we move forward with it? And we can talk about that towards the end of the presentation. And again, it goes with land purchase, engaging a developer, attracting new manufacturing. I think that's critical. There's a couple of, when we say BCOs, it's beneficial cargo owner, it's really the shipper, but in the container business, they're called BCOs. I have no idea why, but they do. And again, our operational startup is the first quarter of 2025, probably. You gotta have everything in place for that to happen. So, verification of our competitiveness. 2 pre-feasibility studies were conducted. This was pre-pandemic. You gotta throw the numbers out today because the numbers are insane, not ours, but the numbers where people are paying $15,000 a container, it's crazy. It will rationalize at some point in time, but I still think there's going to be logistical challenges and issues moving forward. So we had two companies. One was Informa Economics. Jim mentioned the Soy Transportation Coalition, STC, 13 states, 85% of the production of the United States. They paid for it. They wanted to know, we're moving a lot of product, bulk going down the Mississippi River and then railing it to East Coast, West Coast. If we don't do that and it's on your vessels, how does it look? And then CK Americas did it, and they looked at cargo both ways and looked at our system versus rail and trucking. So, I'm not gonna go through all of this. Bottom line is, it takes longer to go through the Panama Canal, but there is some average delays and dwell time of cargo sitting on the ground, not being floated, and it's been that way over 3 years. Throw out what's happening right now. That's before the supply chain issues today. Our costs were much cheaper and days were better than what going through the canal on an average. That's before this stuff happened. Average savings is somewhere between on the imported side. So taking cargo by rail to St. Louis versus bringing it around and putting it on our vessel, there was a 32 to 46% savings somewhere in there between imports and exports. And the only way this really works, these are guides. You gotta talk to each customer, each shipper, find out the seasonality of their cargo, what the cargo is, what's the weight of the cargo, and then we sit down and give them a transportation proposal. Here's a chart that basically shows on this side here, it's FEUs, 40 footers instead of 20 footers, and over here, exports versus imports, port of entry. If you're gonna come into LA and rail it, we can save 26% in 5 days before the pandemic. And that number, I assure you, is better than that. On the export side, export from Shanghai, you wanna go from St. Louis to Shanghai via LA versus LA, what's the difference in that? It was a 78% savings. And the days were 4-day savings. Now, it's situational, some are less. Closer you are to the access point, then it's less, the further it's more. But the fact of the matter is, on average, it's somewhere between 25 to over 50% savings. The soy transportation study, basically, more or less the same thing. Significant savings, all water route. It takes longer, but it's all offset. Their study is available. Go to the Soy Transportation Coalition website, and it's on there. It's like 64 pages, and if you can't get it, ask Roger or Missy and we'll get it to you. And then again, you can see the savings between Memphis and St. Louis on the exported side. Those are significant savings. So, what are some of our milestones that are very, very important to us? Well, one of our key partners is AP Moeller Terminals, which is the sister company to Maersk Shipping. Everybody knows Maersk Shipping, right? Largest container company in the world. This is their sister company. They have 72 terminals around the world. They are now our partners. They will be the terminal operator down at LAG, down at Plaquemines Parish. And we're very excited about that because they bring a whole global presence. Besides, their sister company doesn't hurt to have them bring a cargo in either. So those are all nice things to have. We also, again, Jim had said we're planning on marine operations will be April, May of 2024. We've got enough cargo signed up for first 4 vessels. We've got a container terminal land secured by PPHTD, which is Plaquemines Parish. SP Rail Partnership has put $50 million towards the short line rail piece for the connectivity. Then we've got Memphis. Jim's already talked about that, his expectations there. We have already gone to shipyards. We've gone to 8 shipyards, 4 different states to build our vessels on the, basically solicitation bid was for 4 firm with an option for 4 more. The bids were due back the end of this month. We punted and gave them until the 2nd week of March to make sure they got it right. And then we're gonna make a decision in April, which shipyards we're gonna build. And then basically, we're looking at St. Louis. Is it Kansas City? Is it Jefferson City? That's where we work together and let that all come to fruition on its own. We get the cargo, we get all the right ingredients together, that will dictate whether it's phase 2 or phase 3. We're already having conversations with people that want to get into phase 2. All right, Missouri, we kind of summed this up because when we met with the governor, Missouri is the only state that's got multiple ports that are working together as one. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's great. And it's beautiful. So when we went there, we had Kansas City, we had St. Louis, we had Jefferson City represented. And it was a great discussion. How do we make Missouri first? And again, team approach. That's the way it's been from the day we started this project 5 years ago, right? To where we are today. Again, we're gonna have a joint marketing initiative for all of Missouri, for BCOs, shippers, imports and exports. And it's out in March, sometime in March. Mary Lamey's got the lead of putting that together, but it's gonna be all of us working together, not just her. She's just the point person. And we're gonna make that happen, and we're gonna invite as many BCOs as we can to that, shippers as we can. The goal is to get dedicated term business. That's the goal. I mean, there's no magic to it. You gotta get enough business to support different phases. When we build this terminal, whether it's Jefferson City, whether it's in St. Louis, you don't build it at full build out. You go phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and you hope you have to hurry up and do phase 2 because you got so much cargo. My gosh, I gotta build it faster. But that's how you design it. You build off what you can bankably get from contractual arrangements. Okay, and then we're gonna conduct regional outreach, conduct regional outreach for economic development. Tomorrow, we're gonna be spending the whole day at the Capitol over there with as many people as we can from a Missouri standpoint. How does Missouri benefit from this, and how does Missouri help these terminals get where they need to get to? So we're happy to help in that. Secure bankable agreements for St. Louis, Kansas City, and Jefferson City. And then we've got to align all of the operational dates for all the different terminals with when we get vessels out of the shipyard. Because if you're up and running and we don't have a vessel, that's a problem. Or if we have a vessel and you're not up and running, that's another problem. So we have to coordinate all of that so we're on the same page. Memphis, we're clicking. He needs those vessels for the shippers that he's got lined up, and we gotta be there to do that on a dedicated basis. And that's exciting. So we just gotta do that exponentially. So lastly, what does it mean to Heartland? What do we do here as a community? Okay? Which is the prime location? Jim pretty much has the structure of what you need. You have to have enough foresight to think about phase 3. 5 years from now, this is going. You know what? This container thing is really taking off and people are really utilizing it. Well, you didn't want to get a piece of property that you're on a postage stamp and you can't expand because then the critical mass isn't going to work, infrastructure is not going to work, and our investment doesn't look good. So we have to break it into phases, but we have to have, what is the potential of phase 3? Can we have 200,000 boxes a year? I don't know. A sure as heck pretty good goal for me. Okay, that's what we got in Memphis. With imports and exports. So, identify a developer.
Don't look at me.
Secure baseload cargo. We gotta get baseload cargo. We've gotta get baseload cargo. We're working at it. We've got these meetings coming up, but who here knows of some shippers that are using pretty good volume that would like to see a savings? How do we get them as a core business? To me, if you can get some customers that are your baseload customers, they're gonna be the best customers you have because they're gonna get a great deal and you're building off that platform, which is what we're doing in Memphis. And it works, That's what we have to do in St. Louis, and that's what we have to do here. That's what we got to do in Kansas City. But right now, we're talking about Jeff City, okay? So we've got to get that number there. Where's the cargo coming from? Both ways. Jim used the word. We got to get a balance. We have to balance export with imports. It'd be great to have 150,000 going this way, and we only got 5,000 going this way. It's a little bit tough. We got to get them both ways. And I think the cargo is there, actually. It's actually there. And then secure our financing. The savings for the shippers is so significant that bankability, if you have the cargo in line, financing really comes with it because it's so compelling. the savings is so compelling. Shippers need another option. I mean, you gotta think about this. With this stuff that's happening on the West Coast, it's not going away. Okay, it may get better, but it's never gonna be where it is slick and slick and slick and slick. Not gonna allow them to do it. So you need a new system that doesn't have any constraints. And it becomes a choice. Then shippers have a choice. We're not saying, hey, we'll take all the cargo. Just got a choice. We can move a lot and it's cheaper. And then again, we got to align with the building of our vessels. So that was the simple, informal version. Totally open it up to questions. Please feel free to ask. Yes.
So what's the time frame on building your vessels? I mean, 'cause right now there's steel and aluminum stuff, it's kind of,
Right here.
it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it is. It's just expensive. What we factored that into our cost modeling. So the first 4 probably going to be a lot more expensive than the second 4. But then again, it's going to take 20 months to build them. So steel prices, we're going to have some rateability in our steel pricing. But right here is we're looking at operational date April 2024. Memphis can't run without the vessels, and the vessels can't run without Memphis. It's going to be the same thing here.
Where are you on the placa mines? I mean, where is that development going with that port?
We can't run, go for it.
He wasn't there. I was
I've been
I
there.
was at the monthly meeting in Mobile last Wednesday, spent all day with the development team. Couple of the highlights, they are still on schedule for April of 2024. They have the design team, Nigel Nixon Partners, gave a full report. They were anticipating having their 10% design work completed this week. It basically was waiting for final approval from APMT, but that's what's necessary for them to submit their permits to the Corps of Engineers, and they anticipate doing that first week of April. Beyond that, they have also, APMT, the terminal operator, has brought on another design group called WSP. They're an international port design group, and they're going to serve as the owner's rep for APMT. And they're working together with Nigel Nixon on what'll be the next phase of the design completion, the 35% phase. But they have narrowed down to, they have 3 EPC groups that consist of an architect firm, a marine architect firm, and a marine contracting firm. 2 of them working together, and they've got 3 different teams like that they have come down to that final list and are doing, re-interviewing and rediscussing what have you to come to a contract in April with the actual construction and design group for that. So,
And you mean April 2022?
yes, this coming April, next month. So, from having been to these meetings now for the last 8 or 9 months, I've seen the progress that's come along. It's been a very lengthy process for the development group. I can say this because we're in Missouri. Louisiana has their own unique way of doing things from a government standpoint. We have a parish council that also serves as the port board, so on and so forth. So anyway, bottom line of all that, they are still on schedule, and I'm very confident that they're going to meet their goal and deadline for being operational by April of 2024. So,
Let me just add to that. If Memphis and our vessels are up and operating and lag is not, what are we gonna do? Everybody has to be in sync. Same thing holds true for Jefferson City. We have to have the vessels allocated, being built on time to handle the cargo and make sure that lag has the room. The beautiful part about lag is they can move millions. They're gonna be able to handle millions of TEU, so, and have the ability to grow beyond that.
Phase 1 of LAG is designed out to 850,000 TEUs from day 1 of operations. So, and the goal that in phase 2, their end goal is like 1.8 million. pretty significant numbers.
Sal, I've got some questions that I think people here will generally be interested in. If we're able to generate milled grains and non-GMO, that's a non-genetic modified grain markets overseas, and we can sell this stuff overseas, what kind of equipment are we gonna be needing at our port site to load and unload onto your vessel? And will a standard crane work? And if not, what are we looking at there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ancillary services to look at for rice, if you will, okay, or grain. Grain can be bulk grain and then have what they call a consolidation location. You bring a bulk barge in, put it on a conveyor, hopper conveyor, and put it into a container. And stuff the containers right there at the dock, heavier than the roadway, okay? And then we can take them on our vessel and the customer gets an even cheaper price. So that's called a consolidation location if that soy grain is something that's here. Rice can be milled. A lot of times they take the rice and they take it somewhere else to be milled and bagged, okay? Or create flour. Personally, if you could do it all one-stop shopping and they could package the container right there and consolidate all that, you know how many times they were handling the cargo? And we were talking to some other folks at a different location that asked the same question because people are taking product and milling it somewhere else. Wow, why do that? The other is refrigerated cargo. If you could chill the cargo from the plant and put it right on our vessels because we can handle it chilled, a lot of them take it somewhere else, chill it, stuff it back into a container. You know how many times you've handled that cargo? You don't have to do that if we can do it right there. Road weight is an issue, okay, because you guys will be restricted to road weight unless you get some special permits for certain cargoes. It's possible. I mean, I'm just, just look at the name tag. I had LASIK. So the point is, I mean, those are ways to try to do that. If you can get some special permitting, why not? Make it attractive.
Well, for instance, we raise a lot of livestock in Missouri.
Yep.
If we have slaughter facilities in Missouri that want to ship cargo containers, refrigerated, overseas, to overseas markets, but we're limited on tonnage because per pound, meat products are very expensive. That has a high value. So it's a high value cargo, but we can only load them about 2/3 full, and the top third's airspace because we've already met our weight limits. So what you're telling me is we'll be able to load these cargo containers to capacity if we were to do it at the port site. Same thing with grain. If we wanted to fill a grain thing up, we could use milled corn or milled wheat.
Yeah,
or
any
milled
dense cargo,
soybeans.
any dense cargo that goes beyond road weight. Remember, road weight is heavier than rail weight, right? Okay, so we're saying you can be heavier than road weight and put it on the vessel.
And that gives you additional cost savings in transportation.
It gives the shipper.
So Diamond Pet Food comes out of Anita, and so, I mean, with trucks, there's trucks every day coming out of Anita. So they can come down to our port and just empty those and put more per container, or you just load their trailer onto the ship.
But see, you're double handling now, that's the problem. So you gotta look at the cost on that. I don't have an answer for you because it's totally situational, because I don't know what the incremental cost is. We'd have to understand what the incremental cost is, but the answer is, if they loaded it at the terminal, we could put more on there. So I don't, are they 85% full? Are they 90% full on those boxes? Don't know the answer. If they're 70% full, you start making an argument. There's enough incremental spread there. You can handle it again, and you're going to make more money. But if it's a little, you're going to add cost to it. And again, it's product driven, weight driven. Every one of it. One doesn't apply to the other. It's totally situational. You just got to look at it that way. What I think you ought to feel good about is there's optionality. You got choices. You're not pigeonholed to one thing. We just got to do, well, we only can truck it. That's it. We're done. No. The other thing we're working with is we're actually working with truckers, the Truckers Association. I would say 4 years ago, they weren't too happy with us. Okay. Today, we've come a long way, and they're getting a hard time with the young kids driving overnight and all that stuff. Okay. Well, our view is let's partner. We'll do the long haul. You guys do the last mile. So that's what we're having discussions. We've got folks we're putting meetings together. It's actually really positive. It's gonna be good for everything. It's great for the environment. Again, remember, the port in Louisiana, up here, and our vessel is all green. Who's doing that? And the shippers are willing to pay a little bit more for green, okay, if they didn't have, versus not having that alternative.
Do you have an idea of the amount of TEUs that makes us a viable port? Like, is it 20 TEUs every 2 weeks? That's kind of one of the metrics I've heard in the past.
I think again, it's situational because you gotta go by weight. Are you heavy loaded going out? Mostly exports are usually a lot heavier than imports. The average weight of imports can be anywhere from 12 to 14 metric tons, even 8 to 14 metric tons. That's the average box store container, 40-footer, okay? So if you know that's kind of your benchmark for what your cargo will be, then you could sit back and say, I need X amount of vessels to be able to handle that load, or what's my utilization gonna be? On the heavy side, it could be anywhere from 18,000 metric tons to 30,000 metric tons. So it depends. Obviously, it's less cargo because each box weighs more. But at the end of the day, I would say a phase one operation is which port, right? So if it's Jeff, I'd have to sit back and look at it, but on top of my head,
100,000.
probably between 75 to 100,000 TEU in and out, 20 footers. So that's 50,000 40 footers combined. That would be one. What?
4,000 in and 4,000 out a month,
Right,
1,000 a week.
right. Yeah, right. So at the end of the day, that would be a benchmark. We'd have to look at the cargo. So what I'm saying is I'm putting an asterisk there saying it's situational, but that's a good benchmark. And then we're using 4 vessels, okay, but that's a different program because it's totally different commodity base, totally different, situation there. And they're not going up the Missouri River. They're a real short run, So their frequency is a lot quicker. They can carry a lot more with 4 vessels than if you had 4 vessels up here. Your round trip days, if we parceled in, Kansas City's 12 and a half days. If we went directly to Jefferson City, cut off 150 miles each way, 300 miles, right? So, you're saving some time. It'll maybe a day, okay, a day. But all our ports are gonna be common DNA, same cranes, same expectation for lift on, lift off. We're not gonna spend 50 hours in Jefferson City and 20 hours in Memphis. It's gonna be the same. Has to be. It's the only way this works. We gotta get where it's all together. Then the other part is who do we buy our cranes from, and can everybody get help with that and work on that?
Another thing is, a couple of years ago, we did a pretty extensive study on secondary processing with our agriculture throughout the state. It was a statewide study, and all the different types of things that we produce in Missouri. And one of the things that we were looking at was that we're missing probably our largest profit is we're not doing the secondary processing on things. We grow grain and we ship grain. We don't take it to the next step. We raise cattle and we export them someplace else where they finish them and slaughter them, and we miss another opportunity. But what it sounds like is we're able to load our cargo containers heavy if we were at the port site where we were doing the milling and some of those secondary processes for those things that make sense.
I think that's added value, and so to me, like we talked about that, that slaughterhouse, right? To me, you'd want to get in front of those people sooner than later before they make a business decision to understand that the kind of critical mass they're going to be talking about, there is unbelievable savings. I mean, huge savings. The BCO he's bringing to the table is saving millions and millions and millions of dollars, plus the reliability aspect of it. So, I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities, but here's another group I talked to, the Missouri Soy Association, okay? They've quoted in an article for us. They love what we're doing because they're part of the Soy Transportation Coalition. I talked to them because what we haven't followed up with them yet is, do you wanna go to Kansas City? Are you gonna go out of Jefferson City? Are you gonna go out of St. Louis? What's your preference? Because that could be some cargo right there. I mean, we teed that up in December, early December, when we met with them in Charleston.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that we learned is that the Missouri forest products.
Yeah.
We export everything from, they peel the bark and the lump off the outside of it, and they square it up, and they ship entire logs, the full length.
The whole log.
But they can't fill them full because of
Right.
the weight,
Right.
which would give us opportunity to have an aggregation center near the port, where we could load them all the way to the top and load them.
Well, you gotta be able to pick them up too, I mean.
Another thing is the charred barrels and the oak staves.
Yes.
For, all the different types of distilleries throughout the world. See, Missouri white oak. And most of that right now is going through Springfield, Missouri, where it gets loaded on a train. And that's what gave them the ability to have an international trade zone in Springfield, Missouri, of all places, because they go out on rail.
Let's just get a competitive quote, right? But I just think there's a lot of different commodities that when people start looking in the future, the other part of this is going to be, where are you getting the chassis from? So we're partnering with truckers in Louisiana that we're gonna try to feed into our system. One thing I didn't mention, and I should mention, okay, Kansas City's not gonna have a problem getting boxes, cause they're gonna be there. Cause you got a big rail depot there and so forth, there's a lot there. Chicago, Joliet, how many boxes do you want? They're sitting up there. They can't figure out a way to move them cheaply. I assure you, we can move a bunch really cheap, but we wanna move them and put them in our network, like bring them here, okay? And to different locations, our Western Arkansas friends and partners, and anywhere else in our system that needs them, feed them into our system, load them with cargo, and take them back out again. So, I mean, that's kind of the concept. But another value service is we can move so many empty boxes, and a combination, loaded, empties, but wherever any of our sister ports need them, we take them. So we're talking to a couple of groups right now, pretty exciting. Hey, guess who the developer for Joliet is?
He just keeps adding things.
He does.
I know.
Any more questions?
Hey, Roger,
Our Lower Arnold guy showed up and, Jeff, thank you for being here, and John Hensley, two more of our, board members.
Thank you, thanks for coming. If you guys think of a question later, I mean, you'll have our contact stuff, we'll leave some cards or ask for cards. Don't feel bad to reach out and, ask.
Just had a couple, maybe vessels, there currently is not a vessel that is constructed, these are all.
Prototype.
Yeah.
There's not one physically built at this
No,
time.
we've spent months in Potsdam, Germany, testing them, shallow water, open water, deep water, you name it. Then we've got our approval in principle from the ABS already. So, and we have our specs all done. So it basically, we're ready to go to the shipyard and build. But all the proof of concept has been done, passed, and it's exceeded, like 90% exceeded our expectation or design criteria. There's a group called Siemens Church Institute. I don't know if you've heard of them or not. Siemens Church Institute, they've got, they do bridge simulation, they're faith-based for sailors, but they also do tremendous maritime training for officers. They're phenomenal. We signed a partnership agreement with them. They will be doing all the model testing for our vessel, all bridge simulation. Any of our officers are gonna have to go through this bridge simulation, but i.e., if we start coming to the Missouri River, we're gonna run a bridge simulation of that first, so we know exactly where we're going. And we got our top-notch people on that, so we're gonna be doing this right, and then in return, we're gonna be training all of our people through Siemens Church. And they've got a place in, mostly probably be Paducah, Kentucky. They've got one in New York, and we're not gonna send people up there, and then Houston.
Got a curiosity question. It's when you gas up in Louisiana where's your next gas stop, or do these things?
We can go right now, we're trying to design it right now to 2 round trips. but we're gonna settle for one basis, the inspections and all of that. We might have to go to one on a couple of different things, but right now we can do one for sure, round trip all the way to Joliet and back, or two. We haven't worked on that
Ports
yet.
do not have to have fueling,
Well, to me, LNG, there's several types of LNG. You've been hearing some stuff that it's not as green, well, okay, but it depends on what kind of engines you have as well. And for us, we're gonna be able to have the ability, 10 years from now, we can convert to other fuels if we needed to, but it is the cleanest fuel you can get today and have it available, readily available today. So the point is, if Memphis should offer LNG, we're definitely gonna look at that carefully, and if any of the ports up here, if any of the ports have the ability to provide LNG, I would not throw that out. I would say optionality is a wonderful thing.
But it's not a requirement,
No,
especially for us. We're between St.
no,
Louis and Kansas City.
you're fine, you're
It
fine.
would most
No.
likely be Kansas City.
It would be
or
Kansas
St.
City. Boy, you're dumping on them already, aren't you?
We've gotta be realistic, you know, and I wanna make sure that everybody can take home one of these little one-page flyers that's on the table. Should be plenty to go around. It's just kind of some of the basic stuff that when you're talking to other people, you're gonna say, well, this is the kind of stuff you wanna refer back to. How many units can they do? What does LNG stand for? You know, liquid natural gas. It's got the acronyms at the bottom. LAG, he's referred to that several times. That's the Louisiana Gulf Gateway. So just that kind of stuff, little fact sheet.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Are y'all gonna be able to bring up, bulk materials?
No, we can do super sacks that can go in a box, but right now, we've looked at a couple of designs, but we really wanna be great at what we're doing and keep the network where we can manage it. We don't wanna overpromise and underdeliver. So we're gonna do containers, we're gonna do it right, we're gonna be the best at it, and we're gonna have the lowest cost that's out there.
yeah.
Down the road, that's a possibility, but not right now.
I think one of the things he's talking about is can they take and use one of those tippers and fill the container with, say, raw bauxite and bring that container up here
Bauxite, my
from
favorite.
overseas, bring it in?
My favorite,
I think that's the correct mineral.
wow, is it?
And then the other thing is, once it's processed here at our plants, we've got both solid products, widgets that get palletized and wrapped, that go in cargo containers that go export, along with the super sacks
Yeah.
and things that go on
Yeah.
skids.
There is actually some fabulous boxes that are being designed right now that are collapsible. And also, you can put super sacks in or load directly, they angle them up and then you can load them and get the max out of it. But then again, you got a weight issue, right? Okay, stuff like bauxite and some of that wonderful stuff to carry, you just gotta make sure that it's not leaking, because then that creates a havoc on a vessel. Very corrosive.
I sense that you gentlemen will be around to take small
Absolutely,
questions.
absolutely.
We advertised it as a 6 to 7, but we do have another question.
Yeah, I've got a question. So how much draft does your vessel take?
We can operate at 7 feet to 10 feet. Obviously, it depends on which river we're operating. Memphis down will probably be going at 10 feet most of the time, but we'll drop to 9 when we have to, if we start getting in some low water issues. Missouri River right now is got some issues, we know that. We're working with the Corps. Roger's with me on that, Kansas City's with me, we're all working together, and and this started 6 months ago. And if we start increasing the density of traffic going through the Missouri from Kansas City outbound, they're actually looking for mile 500 outbound, okay? Then how do we maintain 9 feet at 300 foot year round?
Have you done any studies to see how many months you could actually operate now?
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Well, again, if we have to,
With current 10-year average river conditions?
yeah. Well, I think we looked at it, we've talked to some local operators here as well, they gave us some input, we understand the winter months can be difficult at low water, okay? That's why we designed our vessel to go to 7 feet, don't really wanna do that, because as you guys know, if you go to 7 feet, you're leaving cargo on the dock, and it's not good for the customer. and the key is to have reliable service. So the answer is yes, and that's why we're talking to the Corps, and that they're open and receptive to it. They've got a grant, they got some money to do this, to do some repairs, to do some things. I think it's both high water and low water conditions that they have to focus on, and to get to 12 months a year, 9 feet. And there's work that needs to get done. I don't think it's a slam dunk. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think it's gonna be, the thing you're gonna have to look at is, we have months you can't run here. And those are all things that have to be put into your scenario. And to me, that's one of the key problems, places you gotta start, is trying to get the Corps on board, keep the river at a certain level to be able to run 12 months out of the year.
Started that 6 months ago. So between now and end of 24, we gotta make change happen, right? But I think, thanks for bringing it up, because I think you're spot on, but I want you to know we're being proactive with it. I don't think if there was, just go there and have a conversation with them and say, hey, what do you think? I think the fact that maybe there's a new cargo stream coming, and it's necessary because do you really want the Missouri River left out of this thing? When it could have both Kansas City and Jefferson City as a viable ports? And that was I gotta give Richard Grenville, takes all the credit here. He's the guy that kind of started that a while back, and they've been working it. I know, Jim, you've been working on it, and you've been involved in it. I just sat on a call on Friday. So there's a lot of serious rolling up the sleeves to try to figure out what to do.
And MoDOT's been on board. I mean, there was even a consideration in how they designed the bridge at Vokesport. Some consideration was given to how these vessels, and on this cheat sheet, you'll see that it outlines the larger vessel and the smaller vessel. The smaller vessel is the one that'll service the Missouri River.
But it's still, either big or large, you're still gonna have, you still gotta watch the draft.
Right.
But we're aware of it. I mean, that's the good part about it is, and we had some great conversations with some local folks, and it was great, excellent, because we gotta work together on this. But I think the dynamic is changing because, hey, look at what's going on. This is an opportunity for not just Missouri, but I think for the whole Mississippi tributary rivers. Do you guys wanna be engaged in this or not? And I think the approach he took was excellent.
Jason, can you speak to when the navigation season is?
April 1 through December 1 is the standard
Right,
flow support.
right. So,
Rudy?
I know how Blunt stood on this, and Senator Blunt was doing everything he could. Where's our new senator and any discussions from any of the wannabe senators? Okay, anybody?
haven't, maybe, I'm not me.
So I've, if Jim may be able to, I've talked to Holly and his people. Holly's got people at Jefferson County, our meeting every month. And their best, Josh knows the project, is very supportive. On the new candidates, I just talked to Vicki about it this past week. It was a whole education process for her, you know. She seemed to kind of understand, but of course she's campaigning, so she didn't act like she understands anything. Same thing with Eric, with Schmidt. So those are the two that I've met with. I don't know about.
We've had some conversations with Senator Schott, some other folks. You know, they're aware of it. It's a perennial issue that my former boss, Congressman Linkenmeyer, worked on very hard, ensuring we had navigation as available as possible. So we've got those folks on the Senate side and other folks who are aware of the issues on the river and are willing to help make sure we can ensure navigation as much as possible.
I hope each table has filled out got on here with a name and an email so we know you're here and how to keep you in the loop. Thank you all for attending. These gentlemen, I think, will be around for a little bit to have some other questions. So, probably adjourned, and thanks so much for coming this evening.
Yeah.
Don't take my pen.
Anything else like that? Yeah.
Don't take my pen.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at that.
Buddy, how are you? You guys met Jim before?
Good to see y'all. How are you? Good to see you. We're excited. We made some last.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't have a problem.
We got all both sides.
A lot of synergy.
We had I got it's coming. Very good.
You got another flyer?
Another flyer? What makes it all go? That's right. Jim, tell the story.
I'm not gonna put it here. And I filled it up with the folders, not everything. Yes. Kind of like the same reason why we go with
We are for sure.
Assuming the place of the government will be